Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Creative people often deal with depression and a slew of other mental health issues and disorders. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about mental health and the creative muse and, some of those outlets that we have or don't have, you know, as creative people.
Well, I'm sure I have an undiagnosed mental health issue, but I'm not very
You know
creative.
why it's not diagnosed? Because you would never go to the doctor or anyone to ever find out. But that's okay because it. Why do you need to know now?
Right.
You've made it this long, so and so I've been dealing with a wicked case of burnout. I've been burnout, and I feel like I've been burnout for months, and I want to talk about that. I want to talk about my burnout, and I want to talk about mental health issues and the creative muse.
Well, and burnout also affects creativity.
It does. It really does. And I don't, you know, having ADHD and having anxiety, high anxiety, it lends itself to creativity, or to at least to my creativity. And sometimes I don't have an outlet. So dealing with everyday life and dealing with the schedules, the work, the kids' appointments, my appointments, your appointments, dealing with all that stuff on a daily basis and not having an outlet, I think it lends itself to burnout. And I've been dealing with that, I feel like, for several months now. And I know you can feel it. And I
hmm
know I say it all the time. I need a vacation.
Yeah, and I think our I need a vacation is different from than a lot of people. Like we want to leave the house and leave the city and
And I was talking to
go somewhere
somebody
completely different.
I was talking to somebody the other day, actually, at your second job, and it was they had mentioned something about they were going on vacation. There was some stuff that they needed to fix at the house, and oh, so you just mean you're taking a couple days off work? That's all that is.
Yeah.
It's not really taking a vacation if you're at home, unless I mean there you could do staycations. You can take off work with the intention of a vacation and getting away, shutting off the cell phone, disconnecting the Wi-Fi, whatever you got to do in that area. I wouldn't have to do all that because nobody ever calls me anyway. But no, I'm kidding. Like a lot of people call me. I just don't like talking on the phone.
Yeah, I hate talking on the phone.
I don't know why, but I used to love talking on the phone.
I think it's all the years I spent working for government student loan collections.
Hey, that'll do it to
Yeah,
you,
I
won't
hate
it?
to talk to people on the phone,
But,
especially early in the morning.
but you can get a tent and put it in the backyard. Excuse me. You can go and hang out at a park. You can go do things like that on vacation and actually take time away and break the daily cycles of things that you normally do. And yeah, that could be a vacation. But if you're just taking off work to fix up your house I can't really call that a vacation.
It's a workcation.
Yeah, it's not even a staycation at that point.
Like
But
I'm taking off Monday and Tuesday, but
you're also going to be working part of that time because you've got lots of stuff to do for tax season coming up. Or I mean, I guess it's here now, but you got to get some of the family stuff prepared because we didn't do Sahat last year with the IRS, and so we're paying for it this year, and it's kind of a pain in an arrear when we had to check certain government forms and stuff, and it's a big old
mess.
mess, which lends itself to burnout and needing a creative outlet sometimes because no, we don't enjoy, having to take, chunks of our schedules and set them aside because we've gotten too far behind in some of the things that we do on.
A daily basis.
Right. But when when I'm dealing with burnout, my outlets aren't necessarily easy for me to come across because my it seems like my schedules and my routines are at 7 day a week, 24 hours a day. It's difficult sometimes to step outside of those routines and find my inspiration and find my muses. And I know you have a difficult time doing that as well because you don't have any time off. And when you are off, you're taking care of us. And so I know that's got to be difficult. But what are some things that you enjoy doing for, just to step outside of those everyday routines? Is there anything that you've been doing over the last few months that you really enjoy doing that you can't remember doing any other time?
Um,
Something that maybe sparked something that you maybe found some inspiration in a weird place. That happens to me all the time. I find inspirations in strange places. No, you got nothing?
I'm
Am I
just trying to
am I
think.
putting you on the spot?
I'm like, I mean, I'm sure I have. I mean, now that we own a house, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to Pinterest all these home improvement
Yeah, and that
ideas.
and then I
And
have
then
to
I'm like,
figure out a way to pay for them all. But
yeah. Then you're like, oh, at that moment, you're not thinking about the money it's going to cost to
I
do
am.
it.
I am. I'm absolutely thinking about that stuff, but I don't. It doesn't stop a person from dreaming.
Yeah.
I think about inspiration doesn't have to mean just artistic creativity or music, or you know what I mean by artistic creativity. It doesn't have to be just artistic creativity. It can spark all kinds of creativity. And in me, it sparks, you know, visions of how to make things better or how to improve upon what I'm doing in a day, periods of reflection. And I'll see something or I'll hear something driving down the road that'll spark off, hey, we should do this. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that happened yesterday when we were driving, and I could tell you were kind of gloomy, and
I wasn't gloomy. I was mad. And
and you were having a rough day anyways.
yes, I was having a horrible day yesterday.
And then we somehow got to talking about different countries, and then you started
Yeah.
talking about your friend
Yeah,
you met that's from Taiwan.
I have a friend named Benson, and I don't know. He's not necessarily a friend. I just met him. We met at your second job, and he's a great guy. He's very nice and very well spoken, and the way he's while I'm there, he's working, and he took time out of his busy schedule to say, hey, and how are you doing? And we had a wonderful conversation for 15, 20 minutes about just life. And somehow it got onto the subject of raising kids and parenting and his parents and their parents. And I asked where, his family's from, and he said Taiwan. And I was watching an episode of Young Sheldon, and his friend is Vietnamese, and they were talking about in that episode, they were talking about the differences in parenting between American families and Vietnamese families. And I discussed that with him there for a second. And I was like, it's absolutely mind boggling. Some of the differences. And he was telling me about some of the differences between the way we parent and the way his parents were and the way his parents were. And generational, that is one thing that really stood out is how people treat each other based on the generation they grew up in, and how they treat their kids and how they raise their kids versus, because basically it comes down to a lot of the times how we were treated as kids and how we were parented on what we do. And
Well, and maybe, that affects a lot of where our mental health
absolutely,
from.
absolutely. And as I was talking to Benson, I had these little small inspirational moments that led me to discuss these things with you. And a couple weeks goes by and I'm in a horrible mood and we're talking and, I thought of my friend Benson and it
And it
sparked,
completely changed
yeah,
your
it
mood.
completely changed my mood and just that interaction and talking about that interaction sparked inspiration for the show actually. And we were talking early in the week with some family and they gave us some ideas for some show ideas and we were discussing things and discussing creative outlets and mental health. And some of the outlets that I usually have is I like to reflect. I like to have my moments of peace where I can reflect on things. And some people get that from reading or listening to music. I think that happens to me just naturally. No matter what I'm doing, if you leave me alone for too long, I'll start to tune out and I'll come inside my head and I'll be thinking, and that's most of the time an outlet for me, but I don't have time to sit and reflect or I think some people call it meditating. I don't really call it meditating because it can be anything. I can be I can be in the middle of washing dishes and zone out and be inside my head. And you've been in situations where you've been talking to me and I can't hear you.
Yeah. And
And
I'm like,
you're right
man,
beside
I've been
me.
talking for like 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Or Sully will be asking you a question like 3 times. Like, Caleb was always really bad about it. And I'm like, oh my God, damn, would you like turn around?
Some of that I did
asking you a
on
question.
some of that I did on purpose because I knew what they wanted and I didn't want to answer them. So some of that was on purpose, but most of the time it's just I'm in my own little world and I've got my wheels turning and
Yeah.
that's one of my outlets. And I can't really say it's an outlet. It could be a mental health issue, ADHD.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe my creative outlet is sometimes when I think about something or I have an idea on something, I may not necessarily put that into words and tell people. I just hyperfixate on it in my head.
And
Then I scroll through my phone. I'm trying to find everything I can about this one thing.
right. And then you're really bad about like doing some research and not writing things down. Whereas I'm really bad about doing some research and just forgetting all of it
Yeah.
because I know so many things. Sometimes it feels like I jam packed my brain too full. And I was listening back to one of our previous podcasts and something I said on that podcast reminded like sometimes I remember things from, just recall, but then I'll go to try to recall those moments later on. I can't remember them. And which oddly enough, remembering something, when you go to remember something, you're just remembering the last time you remembered it. You're not recalling that original information. It's just like a fax that's been repeated over and over and over again.
Well, and like I think you have a really good memory because some would say you have the memory of like a woman because it's like a Rolodex in your mind and you're like, I remember when that happened, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
But, well, we have a lot of role reversal here in this house, a lot of it. It seems like there's a lot of role reversals. And part of that is because I grew up with women and I was raised by women, my sisters, my mom. I spent a lot of time with my brother and my grandpa too, but just not as much as the girls. And that lended itself to creativity too, because my mom was always having me do stuff, and I learned a lot. And for punishments back when I was a kid, my mom would make me read the encyclopedias, the world encyclopedias. I think I made it.
They sold door to door.
Yeah, I think I made it all the way to like, I don't know, S somewhere in there.
That's pretty good. You must have got in trouble a lot.
I did get in trouble a lot, but hey, I needed creative outlets. I needed
And then you were
somebody.
like, this isn't really punishment because I like to read and learn.
Well, when I was a kid, the way that people would exhaust my energy they would just put a shovel in my hand, put me to work, and that just made me hate doing physical labor. And like you've seen me work, you've seen me around the house. I'm not lazy, I get in there and, well, I take that back. I am one of the laziest people I know, but
Are
when
you
I'm
sure? I mean,
Well, I mean, not very many people would just, get a wild hair up their butt and shovel half the street,
yeah.
you know, because the real reason why I did that is so we could help us
That's because the
get
city
up,
doesn't come down our street.
right, and so we could get the car up the road. But I was exhausted by the end of it, and I was like, I'm done.
Good
But
effort.
I guess I'm not as lazy now as I used to be, but when I do things, it's like I hop into it and it's let's get this going and let's do it. Let's as the great Tony Beats would say on Gold Rush. I love that show. He said, "Let's make this happening." You know, let's get this done. Let's another good quote that I can remember is Zach Wilde. He says, GIFD, get it effing done. And the only reason I'm putting the effing in there is because we're trying to help the show grow, and I don't want to mess with anything on the guidelines of any of the platforms we're on. So bear with us, guys. We'll bring our personalities out and stuff. We gotta pay the bills first.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, and I think that, all of our kids are very creative, and every single one of them has a mental health issue.
Well,
And they're all creative in different ways.
they've all got diagnosed mental health issues, and it's not I hear myself with the headphones, I hear myself saying issues. Like it's
Like I need some tissues.
like there's
'cause I got
something
some issues.
like there's something inherently wrong with like sometimes they are superpowers like anxiety. We were talking about that earlier in the week, how anxiety is kind of a superpower because it lends having a high anxiety. Sometimes you get into high stress situations, you get like a sixth senses when something's going to happen, and or you can see things that look out of place and notice them before everybody else does because you have those anxiety triggers. But all our kids do have mental health issues, or disorders, or ADHD, or depression, and their creative outlets sometimes, are more than I can bear. But I try.
Or like when the one is always going to invent something.
Yeah. But I tell him, first you got to get out of the 8th grade, but
Well, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure somebody's already invented that.
yeah, that's what I tell him. Hey, if you can think it, somebody's probably already done it. Do your research, and if nobody's come up with it, get to work, man. I don't stifle that creativity. I try to bring it out a little bit, no matter what it is. And I think with Caleb, we were having a discussion last night about, the show and planning out a little bit of the beginning. And I said something about reading, and you said, well, that's not creative. And I said, well, how isn't it? And it's because you don't like to read. You have no idea what I'm
hate
talking
reading.
about. I have a mind's eye. You have a mind's eye. And any time that you're visually seeing something without seeing it with your eyes, if you close your eyes and you see an image in your head, or you're thinking about something and you see it without seeing it, that's your mind's eye. And so when you're reading and you have a story, a fiction story that you have to think about, and you have to build that world without seeing it, that's creativity. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I love to read because, I can look at a book and I can get something out of it totally different than you do. We can visualize the same book, but have two different visions, have two different ideas of what's going on in our mind's eye, and that's creative. And so, it doesn't, that's inspiration doesn't have to come in the form of, you know, listening to something or watching something or reading something. It can come from all kinds of places. It can come from a conversation. It can come from a rock. It can come from a trip and fall. You know, inspiration comes from all kinds of places. A while back, we were at the grocery store and I was thinking in my head and I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I look over and what I saw gave me an idea for a show, and it's stuff like that that I'm really, it's just, I find some inspiration in the most mundane, weird places. Doing dishes, I'll see something and I'll attack it. I'll be like, okay, that's cool. Well, let's do a little, circle back to that, and then I'll get lost and end up, in the dryer, fixing things in the dryer. But eventually I get everything pulled back together.
I don't even, like, I'm horrible about that. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to go do this. And then like, oh, nope, I see that. I've seen a meme one time of a lady that was like, oh, I'm going to go fold the laundry. And then she saw like, I think it was like some debris on the floor. And then she's like, oh, I'm going to go get the broom and sweep it. And then like when she went to go get the broom, she saw that the trash needed taken out. And so she's like, I'm going to take the trash out.
It really is like that sometimes. And I know you get like that too.
Yeah. Like I drive myself crazy doing that.
It doesn't really bother me because I'm productive.
But then I'm like, oh man, my original task I started out with like is still over there waiting on me.
Well, there's a kind of a creative difference between you and I. When you get like that and you bounce from task to task to task, none of them get completed. Whereas when I do it, I still get everything done, and I really don't stop until they get done. And so I don't really stop until I can look around and say, there's not really anything else to do. Let's, hang out now. But that's very rare that I do get to sit down and enjoy things, because about the time I get done, I got to run again.
Yeah.
And that's what my days are really like. I want to tell people, eventually about how I get through my day. And man, this may be why I'm dealing with so much burnout, because I don't ever stop. It's like I get up real early in the morning and I go until nighttime, until bedtime.
Yeah.
And it's just exhausting sometimes.
Well, that's why like I use that phrase of, it's like Groundhog Day. Like I feel like
every
Monday
day is
through
exactly
Friday.
the same.
Yeah.
and there's no, it's so monotonous.
Well, and I
and
think
it's not just work. It isn't just work. I mean, that is a really repetitive thing, but you go to your job and you have people there to talk to.
Yeah.
And I go to my job and this is my job. So I'm in a closet pretty much.
Well, and even
in a
like,
very, very big closet.
even when I come home from work, like the kids are very routine. So it's
Yeah.
the same thing, As soon as I step in
Well,
the
the
door.
kids have to be they have to be, especially the little one, have to be routine, or otherwise they don't behave.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. Sometimes they don't behave anyways.
well, it's all right. They're kids. That's what they do. I think the youngest one, his mission in life is to make me happy, and the middle one, I think, is to make me frustrated.
Yeah.
And he's funny about it. So,
Yeah.
at least there's that. He's got a great sense of humor. So I'm glad he got that from me, obviously.
It's like, not me.
Yeah, you're kind of dry.
He got his anxiety and nervousness and nonchalantness and...
Well, we both have anxiety. It just shows itself in different ways. And there's quite a bit of difference between the anxiety that you have and the anxiety that I have. The anxiety that you have is crippling in a way that it keeps you from doing things. Your fight or flight response, it just goes, flight automatically. Mm-hmm. And whereas mine is, the first thing I do is fight. And I used to get so angry all the time, and I didn't understand, why am I so mad? You know, if I stopped and thought about it, what? I don't even have anything to be angry about. And we'd been together for years at this point, and we were standing in Walmart, and I'm sweating, I'm getting agitated and angry, and you're like, I think you have anxiety. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? This lady's just pissing me off. I don't want to, I'm thinking about all the money that we're spending. You're like, see, that's what I'm talking about. I think you have anxiety. And then I was tested for it. And lo and behold, I have anxiety. I have ADHD and probably a slew of other things
Well,
that I don't want to diagnose or,
I mean,
or address.
that's why, like, when you had surgery and you were like in the hospital and freaking, I was like, get this guy something that's gonna knock him out, because I knew that's exactly what was going on. So.
And I felt like somebody was sitting on my chest. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't, and it was anxiety. I was having a panic
that was me
attack.
being creative. I was like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
take care of this problem with some meds.
So, I mean, oftentimes you are quiet and reserved. And if something happens, you're thinking in the background, whereas I'm acting, I'm doing things, like I'm proactive. Sometimes if something happens, I might freak out, but I'm freaking out and at the same time being the fix, not the problem. And for instance, my foot, when I burnt my foot, I mean, that hurt. Oh my goodness, it hurt. I dropped a boiling pan of, was it drippings, drippings out of the smoker. And I dropped it right on my foot.
He was also wearing flip-flops and socks.
Oh, well, you could have left that part out of it. But I dropped it right on my foot. It was really hot. Really, I mean, I got 3rd-degree burns on my foot. And, I mean, it really hurt. I was screaming. I could say at that point, it was probably not the worst pain I ever felt, but it was the most intense. Like, it stayed. It didn't throb. It didn't go away. It was just burn all the time. And while I was screaming, while I was in pain, jumping up and down, I'm trying to reassure everybody, hey, I'm okay. It just hurts, while I'm screaming, and everybody's still running around panicking. I'm like, calm down. It hurts. That's why I'm screaming. Let's get let's go to the hospital. Let's go. And
well, my first reaction was like, I see smoking socks in the yard, and like, I had to run and go get a wet towel. I knew, like, go get a wet towel. Like, we got to get something on this. And so, meanwhile, we got Caleb grabbing the dry towel.
But we were also in while we were, I mean, in that chaos, we were doing something we really enjoy. One of our creative outlets, cooking. Well,
which we're doing today.
Actually, yeah. Well, I smoked some pork butts last night for 12 hours, and we shredded that all up last night, and we're doing some chicken today for a family get together. It's like a Christmas. They couldn't get together for Christmas for whatever reasons, and they want to get the whole family together. And so we're doing my brother's in-laws Christmas dinner in January. And that's one of the things that we really, really love to do. And it's a lot of work. It is a ton of work. Like, for this particular party, we're doing, 20 pounds of pork and 20 pounds of chicken. And the pork itself takes 12 hours. And we only have one smoker. We had two, but we gave one away. And so that takes 12 hours. Then the shredding, you have to wait an hour for the meat to rest and then shred it. And then if it's going in the refrigerator, you have to worry about reheating it and stuff like that the next day. And then cooking the chicken only takes a couple hours, but the preparation going into the chicken takes, because you have to brine it and stuff like that. And that's one of the creative outlets that we found to help us out was cooking, and cooking for large people. And it sounds counterintuitive, but cooking for a large group is so much easier than cooking for small people, a small meal,
Yeah.
because you don't have to think, you just cook.
Yeah. Well, and like for me, like I love smoking meat because like I like making my rub, and then like I like hearing the feedback from it. I mean, like if it's shitty, like tell me it's shitty.
Right,
But,
absolutely.
Like I'm
And
like,
but it
ever since the rib incident, I'm like, yeah.
Well,
Like
the last
that's
time we
all
cooked for a
it.
large group, I felt like I ruined it, and everybody was like mowing down. Oh, this is so good, and I'm like, oh my, I was kind of embarrassed a little
Yeah.
bit.
You're like watching the people taking the first bite.
Right, right.
What's gonna happen?
But and I had nothing but good feedback about the meats and stuff like that, and I'm always blown away by when people give me compliments and stuff, because it's just, hey, I'm living, I'm just trying to do what I can, and but I really love it, and I really like cooking, and I think I'd still cook for a larger groups and stuff, even if I didn't get those compliments, but I I, I like attention, so you know. But that's one of the creative outlets that we found to help us out. But I'm so burnout. I don't even. I'm enjoying it. I enjoy the end product, but it feels like I'm going through the motions. It feels like I've been going through the motions for months, and I just want to go on vacation. I want to go away, but more importantly, I want to go get inspired. I want to go get inspired. And to me, it'd be easy to find inspiration in the mountains. It'd be easy to find inspiration in Europe. It'd be easy to find inspiration in, well, certain parts of Europe anyway. It'd be easy to find inspiration in Hawaii, in the Virgin Islands, or what was that place you wanted to go to? Bora Bora?
No, the
The Maldives. Yeah. And that's a terrible place to go right now.
It's pretty.
It is very beautiful, but a certain country sends their wealthy elites there to hide, and I don't want to get kidnapped, So I'm beautiful. You're beautiful too.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Well, anyway, back to the subject at hand and dealing with burnout and mental health and the creative muse. So, a lot of the folks that we know are creative. I know some musicians. We know some musicians. We know some artists. We know a whole large group of creative folks, and not all of them have mental health issues, but most of them do. Mm-hmm. Most of them have a touch of the ADHD or a touch of the TISM, or a little bit of anxiety and stuff like that. And I wondered if mental health, if there was a correlation between mental health or mental illness and creativity. And we looked it up last night, and there doesn't seem to be much correlation between the two. But most creative people have mental health issues. And everything that we found that we were reading, or what you found and you were reading, pretty much said there's correlation but not causation. Is what it was. Having mental health issues won't lend itself to creativity, but creative people often have mental illnesses or mental disorders like depression, anxiety, ADHD, stuff like that. And, high anxiety can give you depression because you don't understand your issues. You don't understand why you're feeling this way or why you just did what you did. And sometimes I have fits of anger or rage or silliness even, where I'm just overly silly sometimes. That is anxiety sometimes, Even being overly silly. If I'm in a situation where I don't feel comfortable, maybe I'll try to compensate by, being a motor mouth or rambling or talking.
Or then you're like, apparently nobody found me funny.
Right.
But, like me, I'm just zoned out and not paying
Which
attention.
I'll say that stuff out loud. Apparently that wasn't funny, or apparently that was only funny to me. And then I'll get laughs. But
Be like, oh,
anyway.
this is a house full of assholes, so.
Oh, and always. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be fun. It'd be boring. We'd be just like everybody else. We wouldn't have a podcast to talk to anybody on,
Yeah.
And I think that's part of why we are, so fun, and people like hanging out with us sometimes. And except,
do people like hanging out with us?
yeah, they say they love it.
Oh,
Except, it's we're busy, they're busy, and when we all hang out, it doesn't matter who we are. We're always at the end. We're still standing in the middle of the living room. Everybody's ready to go, but they've been there ready to go for an hour.
Yeah. Well, see, like, I'm awful because I'm ready to go to bed at like 9:00.
Yeah.
Like, I'm old.
Well, no, it's not you're old. It's not just that. It's that we are active in the daytime hours. Like you get up really early. We get up really early. And so we like to go to bed. I mean, I still think the times we get wake up, we go to bed pretty late for the times we wake up. Like, when I was growing up, people that got up as early as we do went to bed at like 8 p.m. We don't go to bed till like 11 most nights.
Yeah. Well, I feel now like I'm like my grandparents, because I remember like, oh, we're going to watch the 10 o'clock news and we're going to go to bed. Well, I can't even make it to the 10 o'clock news.
I can't watch the 10 o'clock news because
our news channel's terrible.
Well, our newspaper, and now here we're going off on a tangent here for a second, but our local newspaper bought all of the channels in our area except one. So we have one media outlet that doesn't belong to our newspaper. And okay, two. I think we have a radio station that nobody listens to as well. But that's just mind-blowing how the newspaper owns two or three local TV stations with the affiliates CBS, NBC, and there's another channel out there, but that's just mind-blowing. It's a little piece of information there. It's that one family, one newspaper cornered the majority of media in our city here, and nobody says anything about it. Nobody puts together that, this channel is saying the same thing as this channel, and they have a right wing, which I'm conservative, but I like to listen to both sides. I like my media to be as unbiased as possible, which.
Well, did you see where they're trying to, on the St. Joe crime alert scanner page, whatever it's called, it's got too long of a name to remember, but where they've had several of the news reporters wanting access to the group so that they can get the information.
I saw that.
First.
I saw that, but at that point,
Because
they're
they can't
just
do their
doing
own?
their job. No, it's investigative journalism, and they're trying.
Maybe it's because so many people bitch about how, like, why have we not heard about this? Why are we hearing about it here first and not here?
Maybe the local news people, the newspaper people, and the TV people, maybe they need to have, maybe they should get a mental illness. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Then they can be more creative in their search for information.
Well, I'm telling you, like this city isn't very hard to figure out. It's not that difficult to be an investigative journalist here. All you got to do is talk to people, ask questions, but it's getting those people to talk to you is the problem. If they sniff news, they're like, nope, or police, nope, not talking to you, and so you just kind of got to pick your battles. But if the news around here wasn't so one-sided, maybe people would talk to you.
Yeah.
And Over the years and over the last several years, anytime a story has come about with the school district, it goes under the rug. It goes, I mean, they'll report on it, but they'll make sure it's on the back page, or they'll say, 30 seconds in a 30-minute show on television. They'll talk about that stuff, but they'll shy away from the topic, or there'll be one article the FBI investigated our school district. It was a big deal. I mean, it was a national story. Our local news didn't have much coverage. I mean, they did report on it, but it wasn't as big a deal as it should have been.
This is what we're doing now. This is what happened.
Creativity, back to mental health issues and the creative muse. Some of the things that you can do to step outside of that box is to step outside of that box. Put yourself outside of your daily routines every now and then. I try to do that like once a week. I try to do something different that I didn't do last week and step out of that routine. Even if it's something I normally do on Tuesday, I'll do it on Monday to break up the monotony a little bit.
If I do that, everybody asks what's wrong with me. Or what happened?
Because you don't verbalize what's going on. Like
what happened? Why are you doing that?
You don't. So you don't really notice my daily routines when they get messed up because you're so focused on yours. And when I have wrenches thrown into my routine daily, and I just have to roll with it. And sometimes I have to find creative ways to deal with issues. Yesterday, you were at work, and I happened to get, this stuff ready to go in the smoker and get everything prepared. And I should have done it a week ago. Should have got everything ready to go because I knew it was going to be cold. I knew I was going to need a blanket, which I didn't need a blanket to wrap around the smoker. It did great. It was like 34 all day yesterday, and it did great.
Well, I don't think it was very windy.
No, but it was raining a little bit. But I had to get all that stuff ready, and I couldn't find the stuff I needed, and I had to come up with creative solutions on the fly. And that's one of those things that I'm really good at, is finding creative solutions for problems on the fly.
Yeah, like just a little bit ago when my straw was clogged.
And I told you, what did I say? I said, this is going to irritate me all day if I don't fix it now.
Yeah, because I said, just don't worry about it.
And so
here we are at 5:30 in the morning trying to unclog my coffee straw.
I got it. Which, I mean, it's stuff like that. I find inspiration in strange places. I found inspiration in your straw to get actionable creativity there. And I do that all the time. It's not out of the ordinary for me. I don't even notice when I'm doing it most of the time until we started planning this show. And it's like, I do that all the time. I have wrenches thrown at me from left field sometimes, and I find creative solutions to figure it out. And like, I think being poor and having to find ways to survive and find ways to have the things that I want to have or do the things that I want to do with no money, and I think that lends itself to it too. I think the struggle, I think we find a lot of inspiration in the struggle, and we'll think about what happens to people when they don't have that struggle anymore. And that's what got them to where they are, to bring a movie into it, like Rocky. Think of the difference between Rocky 2 and Rocky 3. Rocky 3, he got civilized, and lost his edge, and he didn't have that struggle anymore. He had to go back and find that inspiration. He had to find that creative control that allowed him to be him. And we got to do that. Everybody's got to do that. Everybody's got to find a way. And I heard something a while back. It's something a lot of people say. It's and I'm paraphrasing. It's something like good times create weak people. And that's a lot of that's going on right now. We made it too easy, and our parents made it too easy for us, and we're making it too easy for our kids. And good times are creating weak people, and I've been inspired by that. I'm planning camping trips. I'm planning lots of things because I was thinking, how do I reach my middle son? How do I teach him some of the things that I know and I know that he needs to know? And I thought going camping, that would be a great way to reach him and get him to listen and get him to, while I'm showing him things, while I'm teaching him how to build a fire, I can have a philosophical conversation with him, and I can carry out, you know, he can learn how to build a fire and talk to his dad at the same time.
Well, and he's really thinking about it because yesterday he asked me, Mom, when do you think ponds will thaw out? And I was
Did you
like,
tell him they're thawed out now?
and I said, well, if they're not, like, probably into February, just depends on the temperature, And
You
he's
know,
like,
that reminds me, I haven't seen water in so long.
water.
A body of water.
Yeah. But he was like trying to prepare what he needed to go fishing when you guys went camping, if he would need something to cut the ice. And so I was like, well, I don't think we're going to be doing any ice fishing. So
I know a guy. I know a guy in Montana. I know a guy who has a bait and tackle shop in Montana. You know him too. But
I didn't know he had a bait and tackle shop.
yeah, he's ice fishing rentals, man.
Lord.
I'm so excited about it because, I love this guy anyway. Phil, I love you if you're watching. The he is an inspiration in himself because he and his wife moved from, little bitty area that we live in to Montana to be homesteaders. And they're doing great. They built their own house and they're raising their kids on their own property and showing them how to live off the land, showing them how to work hard and play harder, and that's all fun for him, getting up in the morning, going to work. He owns his own business, getting two successful businesses. He gets up in the morning, he goes to work, and he enjoys what he does. And then he comes home, enjoys his family, and enjoys his hobbies. And to make some money through the winter, he opened up a business that has a lot to do with one of his hobbies. He loves hunting, loves fishing, and so he opened up a bait and tackle store and ice fishing rental stuff. The things that you need for ice fishing. And I was like, wow. Another one of my friends who lives in Tennessee, now I'm starting to remember why my friends don't talk to me, is because they all moved away.
To find creative inspiration.
Yes.
Or inspiration.
He's a hat maker in Tennessee. My buddy Brandon owns his own, I forget the name of the company. I wanted to give him a shout out, but he's making hats, and he has to be inspired with every hat. He has to find creative solutions. And I don't know if he has any mental health issues. I would assume he does because he's my friend, but he's got to find creative solutions for his hats. Every hat, every hat is handmade and individual, custom, and he designs every one. And I thought that was really neat. And it seems like a lot of my friends, a lot of the people that I know are creatives, and we all hate the man. No, I love capitalism, but I hate it at the same time. Happen to know an artist. We know an artist who is right now, she's dealing with some stuff, and she gave us the idea for this show because I think maybe we sparked some creativity, and know she sparks creativity in us all the time. And she gives us ideas, and I want to give that person a shout out. Thank you very much. You know who you are. You're watching. And we appreciate that too. All the love and support that we've gotten, it's incredible, and this all wouldn't be possible without
Your
all,
mental health issues.
yeah, none of this, like I wouldn't have, so I wouldn't have the ego to be able to come on camera and talk on a microphone to the whole world. This is not just going to us. I mean, this is going to the whole world, except for a few communist places, which we won't get into that today. But I mean, this is going everywhere, and I wouldn't have the ego to do all that, without a little bit of mental health issues. I think, they're actors all over Hollywood. I'm sure they're nice people, but they got to be strange. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
Pretending like that for a job, that's got to be rough. It'd be like lawyering. You got to lie for a living, But anyway, so a lot of the creatives in Hollywood, I wonder what kind of outlets they have in Hollywood, because some of our favorite artists in Hollywood are really, really busy. And, like, hey, for instance, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, that guy works all the time. I mean, he's slowed down in, since the pandemic, I guess. He's slowed down in quite a bit, but he's everywhere still. And can you imagine how busy that guy might be or must be? One of my favorite podcasters, Joe Rogan, you know how busy that guy's got to be? Not only does he have this podcast thing, which a lot of people know him from, but he's also a successful comedian.
See, I think that's so funny because I never knew he was a comedian because I watch his podcast and I would never think he's funny.
I don't think he's funny myself. I think he's got a brilliant mind, but I don't think his comedy's that funny. I don't.
I mean, even in his I like his podcast too, but he always looks like he's about to fall asleep.
Well, it's because, honey, he's old.
I'm just
He's like he's in
got
his
like
50s.
bags under his eyes. I'm like, you need to take a nap.
No, you leave him alone. I just don't think he's like busted gut hilarious. I think he's funny on his podcast, but as far as his comedy and his stand up, it's humorous, but he doesn't. I remember comedy like Cat Williams. I remember Richard Pryor, and Matt Rife. Some of his comedies memorable.
He's new.
George Carlin. A lot of my favorite sayings are from George Carlin. It's all bad for you, and it's bullshit. Or no, that's backwards. It's all bullshit, and it's bad for you.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of inspiration from those comedy greats like that too. But Joe Rogan's not that funny.
Yeah.
But I get inspiration from Joe Rogan because he makes me think.
And he likes to talk about aliens.
Oh, everybody I say everybody, but you don't like to talk about aliens, do you?
I mean, like, I like watching the videos.
Are you getting into it? Because it's
some
kind of
weird
strange.
shit out there.
I'm telling you. But I want to have a whole show on that when we can have some of the things up there.
And I think we should wear tinfoil hats.
Hey, that's an idea.
Finding inspiration in strange places.
In the middle of a podcast, we get some ideas. But those type of people, I wonder what they do. Joe Rogan, he's on that podcast, so I mean, he has 4 or 5 hours or 3 or 4 hours, almost daily to talk to us and tell us what he does. So I know some of the things that he does. He works out, he every day, and that's a release for him. That's inspiration. That's creativity for him, is doing his workouts and doing his ice plunges and stuff like that. And then, his comedy routine working for him is a release, a creative release. And that's pretty awesome to me. And that's inspirational to me. And I wonder what people like they're constantly busy. I mean, I say I'm constantly busy, but these people don't even have time to sleep, sometimes. Like, pulling in millions of dollars a year. I'd imagine your phone's always ringing.
Well, they probably have people to answer that phone for them and people to do this and that for them.
Okay, so I'm sure a lot of those people have multiple people doing that stuff, but somebody's got to talk to them. Somebody's got to, I'm sure, you know, a lot of these people, just the pretty face isn't going to, make all those decisions. And I know a lot of these people have people to make those decisions, but somebody's got to funnel that at some point. It all has to funnel back to that one person, or else you're not going to be successful. People are going to take advantage of you and you're going to be dead, kind of like, the big famous musicians, like Elvis and Michael Jackson and all them, while they were alive and earning money, it wasn't just for them. They were earning a lot of money for everybody else too. So like, I don't think Elvis didn't even make a majority of his money while he was alive. So, it is what it is. But I wonder what, think about Elvis, what his creative outlets were, because he couldn't go out in public, and that had to lend itself to his early demise too, is not being able to have those creative outlets. And he was a creative person. And so I'm sure he found inspiration in a lot of places. Didn't he have songwriters though? I'm sure he had songwriters.
Yeah.
And he did gospel that was already done and stuff like that. But so I'm sure he found his inspiration in lots of places.
Well, just look at Graceland and how extravagant it is. Like, each room is very different.
I don't know.
So maybe that was his
I did
way
a
to be
virtual
creative.
tour of that place, but I want to hang out there and go do a tour, but it's in the middle of Memphis.
Ugh.
And we love to travel. We've been to Memphis and we hung out at the Bass Pro Shop. We went and stayed at the Bass Pro Shop. They have a big pyramid in Memphis, and it's got a hotel in it, and you can stay inside the hotel, which is inside the Bass Pro Shop. So it was like spending a night at the museum. Felt like a lock-in. You ever went to those lock-ins when you were a kid?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. It was quiet, and you could hear the
water and the
Yeah,
tanks.
that was awesome.
Yeah.
And at the very top of this hotel, it's open to the pyramid, and it's like little cabins up on top, and you can rent those. And we rented one and looked over the whole big store, and man, it was really neat. And just talking about it right now is getting me inspired to go back there and hang. But just that one place, it's got room service, it's got a bowling alley. Hey, you don't have to leave this place if you don't want
Got
to.
a bar up at the very top. Yeah.
And it's good food too. It's American cuisine, which you never get tired of. Oh, well, I don't. But yeah, so inspiration comes in a lot of places, comes in strange places, comes in unexpected places a lot of the times. But I wonder if, me having ADHD and having the racing thoughts that I do sometimes, I wonder if I was on medications on a regular basis, if maybe that stuff would stop.
So, yeah, I did when I was doing some research. That was one of the things that kept popping up. Will medication stifle creativity in those with mental illness?
Really? I wonder if it does.
I didn't really read into it too much.
So we don't have any data to back that up. I wonder.
It's been asked, so.
So other people wonder that as well. I wonder if, and I don't want to stifle my kids' creativity. And we've got one on medications, and I've had conversations with the doctor about it. I've talked to the doctor, and I'm like, hey doc, I am anti-medication, and it's not for any other reason, but for the negative side effects of those medications. If they had all positive side effects, we'd all be on medication. But the negative side effects to a lot of those medications is dangerous. And so I'm talking to the doctor, and he's a pediatrician, very smart guy. He's saved lives of our children, actually. And so I was talking to him and hey, doc, I'm anti-medication, but this kid needs something to help him concentrate sometimes, I think. And I want to talk to you and leave those decisions up to you and him. And we had a DNA test. It was called Gene Sight. And we had that DNA test done for our son, and to see which medications would work best, which ones might not work at all, which ones might work but might not work, so just like a general medication, mental health medication panel. That's what it was. And we found which medications would work the best for our son. And I think he's on one, isn't he? So talking to the doctor, I'm like, hey, if he's got to be on a medication, is there a medication that won't mess with his personality? And because I've seen kids on medication just, I've seen kids on some medications I'm like drooling.
Yeah.
So that stifled their creativity. I mean, it stifled their breathing. So
Yeah.
I told Doc, I don't want to stifle his creativity. I don't want to change him. But he says he's having difficulty in school and focusing. And that was before he had grade problems. That was before he had any issues with these grades. And so, the doc was like, yeah, we see these medications right here will work for the best for him, and we'll try one of those out. We tried one. I think he's been on it since. And we switched him up one time, but ultimately we went back.
Well, and the unfortunate thing about, ADHD medication is
They stop working.
you have to switch it up because they don't.
Yeah, they stop being
your body
effective.
gets used to them.
Yeah.
And yep.
And so I leave that decision up to him and Doc, because if it was up to me, he wouldn't be on anything. But he's got to have that piece of paper saying he made it through school. And but why? Maybe he's not going to do anything other than factory work his whole life. The hell does he need to know geometry for?
Yeah.
That bothers me. That really bothers me. And I feel like our education system is set up to stifle creativity. It really is. Because, I mean, how are you going to sit a kid that can't sit down? You're going to tell him, hey, you got to sit here for 7.5 hours. But I'm having a hard time doing that. Oh, too bad. You got to. Or your parents are going to go to jail. Stuff like that. I don't know why it seems like the way the entire system's built is to stifle creativity. And you would figure that they being, the people in charge or those who it matters to, you would figure everybody would want here in the United States, we're a meritocracy. You'd figure you'd want the best person for the job.
Yeah.
And do you want people writing books that aren't good at writing books? Do you want people going through the education system? Why are we educating people just to be educated? Why can't we educate them the way they want to be educated? And I know you can't personalize public school for every kid, but we got to figure out something. We got to get these kids excited about life.
Well, and two, thinking about, when kids are in elementary school, they have PE and they get recess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they get 2 separate times to burn off that built up energy that makes them not be able to sit down. And when you get into middle school, you might have PE one semester, but then the next you don't. And then you don't ever have recess. And so like this quarter, like he doesn't have any of that. Like he's literally just going class to class to class to class to class.
I was,
And they get like a 25-minute lunch.
yeah.
So
25 minutes.
I
That's
think
a long time.
Well, I think it's only like, 20, 25 minutes. It's not like a half an hour. So
It just, that reminded me of, they give the kids a certain amount of time for each class, but they're not really learning anything. I mean, think about when you were in school and the things that were important, you learned the things that were important to your life, relevant to your life, like math and reading and, basic science and stuff like that. Well, I mean, we learned, but we didn't retain anyway. I feel like we've gone off on a tangent here and I'm a little rambly but I just wanted to talk to you and our listeners and viewers about finding that creative outlet, and stepping outside of your routine sometimes and find inspiration anywhere you can find it. But you've got to find a creative outlet. Like I said, I'm dealing with a wicked case of burnout. I don't know where I'm going to find that outlet, but I'm working on it. I'm working on some ideas on how to step outside of my routine a little bit. And I've got some plans this week coming up, and I want to work on the show a little bit. But I'm inspired for this show by, our family and our friends and our kids, because we all have a little bit of something wrong with us. And I think it lends itself to creativity, and let's not stifle that in our children, and let's let them grow and push them to be creative if they want to be. With our middle child, we let him kind of pick and choose where he wants to go, and then we kind of nudge him that direction. Mm-hmm. And we give him ideas, and like he wants to play all kinds of instruments, musical instruments. So what we do, we encourage that.
Yeah.
And he's got a bass guitar, and then we tell him, hey, why don't you go practice your bass, and even the songs that he's working on sound great. I mean,
right.
So I'm like, yeah, go ahead, break out that bass. I love hearing it. And I really like that he likes it. Yeah. And he's willing to give that a shot. Good morning, Rocket.
No, maybe later.
Okay, maybe later.
You could in Nana's car later.
Okay.
You want Nana's car?
Well, I think we've got since we've got a visitor here, we got to wrap this up. I'd love to sit here and talk for a couple more hours, but I'm afraid we won't be able to hear each other.
Right.
I'll leave you guys with this. Don't stifle your creativity. If you see any young people, try to spark creativity. Try to inspire. Try to find inspiration in a weird place. Next time that you're in a weird situation, stop and think, how can I let this inspire me? How can this spark creativity? But most importantly, if you're having interactions with young people, don't be discouraging. If they talk, if they're talking to you, be nice and talk back and encourage that creativity. Encourage them to do the things that they like to do. Encourage them to run with that wild idea. And so we don't break any copyright rules. I love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Tuck that in.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about... No, we're not. We're not going to talk about anything.
We're going to keep that on the That might be a blooper. We're not gonna talk about anything.